Part 1. The Biomechanics of Duress. The Uncensored Truth. Biology overrides willpower. The greatest lie you have been told about working under pressure is that it is a character trait. It is not. It is a biological state. You cannot think your way out of a physiological hijack, any more than you can think your heart into stopping. When you feel pressure, you are experiencing an evolutionary mismatch. Your body is reacting to a deadline, a confrontation, or a market crash as if it were a saber-toothed tiger. This is the sympathetic nervous system, SNS, dump. The physiology of the dump, when the brain perceives a threat, real or abstract. The amygdala, the threat detection center, bypasses the prefrontal cortex, the logic center. This is the amygdala hijack. Here is what happens in the next 5 seconds crucial for you to understand so you stop judging yourself for it. 1. HPA axis activation. Your hypothalamus signals the pituitary, which signals the adrenals. 2. Chemical flood. You are flooded with cortisol, stress hormone, and adrenaline. 3. Vasoconstriction. Blood is shunted away from your extremities, hands get cold or shaking, and your internal organs, butterflies or nausea, to your major muscle groups. You are primed to run or fight, not to type or negotiate. 4. Cognitive decoupling. Blood flow to the prefrontal cortex is reduced. Your functional IQ drops by 15 to 20 points instantly. You literally become stupider. The truth no one mentions. In extreme pressure, this biological override can lead to auditory exclusion. You literally stop hearing people talking to you. Tachycyclia, time distortion. Events seem to move in slow motion, or you lose time entirely. Loss of fine motor skills. You become clumsy. Typing, surgery, or delicate tasks become nearly impossible without specific training. Voiding. In true survival states, the body dumps weight to run faster. This means loss of bladder or bowel control. While rare in the office, the urge, nervous stomach is the same mechanism. 2. Battlefield psychology, Cooper's colors, and the OODA loop. To control pressure, we must borrow from domains where pressure equals death. The military does not rely on staying calm. They rely on conditioning and situational awareness. 1. Cooper's color code. Most civilians live in condition white and jump straight to condition black when crisis hits. This is why they freeze. You must live in yellow. Conditioned state of mind, physiological reality. White, unaware and unprepared. Browsing your phone, daydreaming. If a crisis hits here, you will panic. Heart rate resting. Parasympathetic dominance. Yellow, relaxed alertness. No specific threat, but you are aware of your environment. I am looking, I am scanning. Slight elevation in awareness. Prefrontal cortex fully engaged. This is the ideal state for high-stakes work. Orange specific focus. Something is wrong. A potential threat or major error is identified. I might have to act. SNS priming. Adrenaline drip begins. Focus narrows. Red, the fight. The crisis is here. Action is immediate. Full SNS activation. Black, catastrophic breakdown. Panic. Freeze. Mental shutdown. You can no longer process information. System overload. The mistake. You are likely working in white, distracted, and suddenly getting hit with a crisis, sending you straight to black. You must train yourself to work in yellow, aware, scanning, anticipating friction before it becomes a crisis. 2. The OODA loop. Developed by USAF Colonel John Boyd, the OODA loop explains how to win in high-speed environments. Observe, orient, decide, act. Pressure overwhelms you when your OODA loop is slower than the changing environment. Observe, raw data input. The server is down. The client is screaming. Orient, the most critical step. Filtering the data through your mental models. What does this mean? Is this fatal or just noisy? Decide, hypothesis. If I do X, Y will happen. Act, execution. Why you fail here. Most people get stuck in observe or orient. They stare at the problem, observe, and panic about what it means, orient, without ever deciding. This is analysis paralysis. In a pressure scenario, a mediocre decision executed violently fast is better than a perfect decision made too late. 3. Nervous system control, the hardware hacks. You cannot think yourself calm. You must use the body to control the mind. These are bottom-up processing techniques. 1. The visual override, panoramic vision. The eyes are literally an extruded part of the brain. They are the only part of the CNS visible from the outside. Foveal vision, tunnel vision. When you stress, your pupils dilate and you focus intensely on one point, the email, the threat. This signals the brain, we are being hunted. It increases adrenaline. Panoramic vision, peripheral. This is the hack. The protocol. When you feel the chest tighten, 1. Keep your head still. 2. Soften your gaze. 3. Without moving your eyes, try to see the walls on the far left and far right of the room simultaneously. 4. Expand to see the ceiling and floor. Why it works? It is physiologically impossible to remain in a high-stress fight state while maintaining panoramic vision. This visual mode engages the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal. It forces the brain to assess the environment as safe. 2. The respiratory reset, the physiological sigh. Forget deep breathing or box breathing for immediate panic. Those are for maintenance. For an emergency brake, use the physiological sigh. The mechanism, carbon dioxide, CO2, tolerance, dictates your stress threshold. When you panic, you hyperventilate, offloading too much CO2, which actually restricts oxygen delivery to the brain, the Bohr effect. The protocol, 1. Inhale deeply through the nose. 2. At the top of the inhale, take a second, shorter, sharp inhale through the nose, popping the alveoli in the lungs. 3. Exhale fully and slowly through the mouth, like you are blowing through a straw. Do this 2 to 3 times. This mechanically offloads CO2 and reinflates collapsed alveoli, signaling the heart to slow down via the vagus nerve. 3. The vagus nerve and the freeze response. Sometimes pressure doesn't make you frantic. It makes you numb. You stare at the screen and can't move. This is the dorsal vagal shutdown. It is the body playing dead. How to break the freeze. Physical shock. Splash ice-cold water on your face. This triggers the mammalian dive reflex, instantly lowering heart rate and resetting the system. Motor engagement. Move your body. Stand up. Do a squat. Squeeze a gripper. You need to send a signal from the somatic nervous system that we are moving, we are not dead. IV. Mistakes you are likely making. The no-fluff audit of your current behavior. 1. You are intellectualizing fear. You are trying to use logic to talk yourself out of a chemical reaction. You think, why am I nervous? I am prepared. This is stupid. The reality, your amygdala doesn't speak English. It speaks adrenaline. Stop arguing with your physiology. Acknowledge the signal, my hands are shaking because I am primed for action, and use the breathing protocols to regulate it. 2. You mistake excitement for anxiety. Physiologically, anxiety and excitement are almost identical. High heart rate, cortisol, butterflies. The only difference is the mental label. The mistake, you feel the surge and label it fear. This creates a feedback loop of, I am afraid, I should be worried, more adrenaline. The fix, anxiety reappraisal. When the surge hits, say out loud, I am amped. I am physiologically primed. Do not try to calm down, try to steer the energy. It is easier to turn anxiety into excitement than it is to turn anxiety into calm. 3. You are ignoring the refractory period. After a high-pressure event, your body needs to crash. This is the refractory period. The mistake, pushing through the crash with caffeine or more work. The consequence, accumulation of allostatic load. This leads to burnout. If you sprint, you must walk. If you deny the recovery, the next pressure spike will break you because your baseline cortisol is already too high. You rely on motivation instead of protocol. Amateurs wait to feel ready. Pros operate on protocol. Under pressure, you will not rise to the occasion. You will sink to the level of your training. If you do not have a preset checklist, a standard operating procedure for when shit hits the fan, you will fail. You cannot rely on your brain to invent a solution when it is 20 IQ points dumber than usual. V. Advanced Technique, Cognitive Detachment, Introduction. To survive long-term pressure, you must learn compartmentalization. This is not suppressing emotions, it is placing them in a box to be processed later. The glass wall visualization. Imagine a glass wall between you and the chaos. On one side is the screaming client, the crashing server, the noise. On your side is silence. You can see the chaos, but it cannot touch you. You are observing the data, not experiencing the emotion. Clinical detachment. Think of an ER trauma surgeon. If they empathize with the patient screaming in pain, their hands will shake and the patient will die. To save the patient, the surgeon must treat the human body as a mechanic treats an engine. The shift, stop asking, how do I feel about this? The shift, start asking, what is the next mechanical step required to solve this equation? This concludes part 1, the mechanisms. Part 2 will cover the execution, mental models for decision making, long-term detachment techniques, post-action reviews, and how to build stress inoculation so you become immune to the pressure that breaks others. Would you like me to proceed with part 2? Here is part 2 of 2 on high-performance pressure management. This response focuses on execution and adaptation, the mental models for making decisions when the house is on fire, how to build long-term immunity to stress, inoculation, and the structural mistakes that lead to burnout. Part 2, execution, inoculation, and strategic detachment. VI, decision-making under fire, mental models. In part 1, we established that your IQ drops under pressure. Therefore, you cannot rely on raw processing power. You must rely on heuristics, shortcuts, and preloaded mental models to navigate chaos. 1. The pre-mortem, defeating surprise. Most people do a post-mortem after they fail. High performers do a pre-mortem before they start. The protocol, before a high-stakes event. Assume it has already failed. Prompt, it is 30 days from now. The project is a total disaster. Why did it happen? Result, this forces your brain to identify the silent killers. Example, the server couldn't handle the load, my partner panicked. Action, you build contingencies for these specific failures now. Why it works, pressure is often just surprise in disguise. If you have already visualized the failure, the shock factor is removed. You are not panicked, you are validating a hypothesis. 2. The 70% rule, speed versus accuracy. In high-pressure environments, combat, trading, emergency medicine, waiting for 100% of the information means you are dead. The rule, if you have 70% of the intel and 70% confidence, you act. Waiting for the last 30% usually takes as much time as the first 70%, but by then, the opportunity window has closed. Correction over perfection. It is easier to steer a moving ship than a stationary one. Make the decision, then course correct based on feedback. 3. Inversion, the via negativa. When you don't know what to do to win, ask, what would I do if I wanted to guarantee failure? Scenario, you are overwhelmed with work. Inversion, how could I make this worse? I could get no sleep. I could say yes to every request. I could constantly check my email. Solution, avoid those 3 things. Why it works. It is cognitively easier to identify stupidity than brilliance. Eliminating errors is more robust than seeking the perfect move. 7. Stress inoculation training, SIT. You cannot learn to swim by reading a book about water. You cannot learn to handle pressure by reading about psychology. You must inoculate yourself. This is the concept of hardening the nervous system. 1. Controlled microstress dosing. You need to voluntarily expose yourself to spikes of adrenaline, so your brain learns to recognize the signal and remain calm. The cold plunge or shower, this is not a wellness fad, it is SNS training. The shock of cold water mimics the physiology of panic, gasps, heart rate spike. The drill? Get in. Suppress the shiver. Force your breathing to slow down. You are teaching your brain, this feels like panic, but I am in control. Public speaking or social risk. Speak up in a meeting where you feel unqualified. Post something controversial. Deliberately trigger the fear of social rejection. High-intensity interval training, HIIT. Push your heart rate to 90% max. The physiological noise, pain, lack of oxygen trains you to think through discomfort. 2. Simulation training. Athletes and soldiers do not practice until they get it right. They practice until they cannot get it wrong. Create artificial pressure. Do your work with a timer ticking down loudly. Noise injection. Try to perform complex cognitive tasks with distracting audio. Example: crying baby sounds, chaotic street noise, playing in headphones. The benefit: you desensitize the amygdala. When the real pressure hits, your brain says, "Oh, I recognize this state. We've been here before." 8. Advanced detachment techniques. Detachment is not about not caring, it is about outcome independence. It is the ability to separate yourself from the event. 1. The view from above. Zoom out. Pressure relies on myopia, the belief that this specific moment is the most important thing in the universe. The reframing protocol: when you feel overwhelmed, mentally zoom out to the building, zoom out to the city, zoom out to the timeline of your career. This is 1 week in a 40-year career. Zoom out to history, the reality: in 5 years you will barely remember this crisis. Do not mortgage your mental health for something that is statistically insignificant. 2. Labels and narratives. The event is neutral. Your judgment makes it bad. Fact: the client rejected the proposal. Neutral. Narrative: I am a failure. I will get fired. Pressure. The technique: strip the adjectives. Describe the situation like a police report. The proposal was rejected. The stated reason was budget. Action required: revise budget or find new client. This removes the emotional hooks that drain your energy. 3. The alter ego effect. Many high performers adopt a persona. When Beyoncé is nervous, she becomes Sasha Fierce. Create a professional avatar. When you clock in, you are the operator. The operator does not have feelings. The operator has objectives. If the operator fails, it wasn't you, the human, who failed, it was the strategy. This prevents the ego damage that causes performance anxiety. 9X. The after-action review, AAR. The only difference between a mistake and a lesson is the AAR. If you do not review, you will repeat. The no-fluff AAR protocol. Do this immediately after the pressure event subsides. Be brutal. Write it down. 1. What did I intend to do? The plan. 2. What actually happened? The reality. 3. Why the gap? The root cause. Usually a failure in preparation or emotional control. 4. What will I do differently next time? The fix. Crucial rule: no blaming external factors. The market was bad. Focus only on what was in your control. I did not hedge against the market. X. Subtle mistakes you are still making. 1. Venting is weakness. You think venting releases stress. The truth: venting, complaining without seeking a solution, is rehearsal. It reinforces the neural pathways of victimhood and anger. It keeps the cortisol high. Fix: discuss problems only to solve them. If you aren't looking for a solution, shut up. 2. You are under-recovered, the sleep tax. You think you can cheat sleep to buy time. The truth: 1 night of 4 to 5 hours sleep reduces your prefrontal cortex function to that of someone who is legally drunk. You are trying to handle high pressure while cognitively intoxicated. Non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. If you can't sleep, use a 20-minute NSDR script, Yoga Nidra. It resets dopamine levels and reduces cortisol more effectively than a nap. 3. You are catastrophizing. You are chaining low-probability negative events. If I miss this deadline, client leaves, I get fired, I lose my house. The fix: the so what drill. If I miss the deadline, what happens? Client is mad. So what? I have to apologize and discount the fee. So what? We lose profit but keep the client. Stop the chain at the most likely outcome, not the catastrophic one. 4. You are addicted to the stress. Some people unconsciously create chaos because they are addicted to the adrenaline rush of fixing it. They procrastinate until the pressure is high enough to force action. The truth, this is a dopamine dependency. It is unsustainable. The fix, learn to work in cold states, calm, disciplined work, rather than relying on hot states, panic-induced focus. 11. Summary checklist for the operator. Immediate control. Visual, engage panoramic vision to trigger parasympathetic brake. Respiratory, use the physiological sigh. Double inhale, long exhale. Somatic, move the body to break the freeze response. Mental models, OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. Speed over perfection. Inversion, avoid the stupidity rather than seeking brilliance. Detachment, use the glass wall or the operator persona. Long-term training, inoculation, cold showers, public speaking, manufactured urgency. Recovery, prioritize sleep as a performance drug. Review, conduct brutal AARs after every crisis. The final truth, pressure is a privilege. It means you are in a position where your actions have consequences. The goal is not to eliminate pressure. The goal is to increase your capacity to handle it so that what crushes others barely registers to you. Your next step, do not just read this. Pick one physiological intervention, example, the physiological sigh or panoramic vision, and use it the very next time you feel even a mild spike of annoyance or stress, example, stuck in traffic or a slow email load. Would you like a specific drills or scenario plan to practice these techniques over the next 7 days? Here is part 3, the advanced manual. This content addresses these specific, high-value practicalities, ritual mechanics, and esoteric anomalies not covered in the first 2 parts. It focuses on the how-to, the predictive signs, and the specific remedies for complex situations. Life after death in Hinduism, the advanced protocols and anomalies, part 3. This section moves beyond the general map into the specific engineering of the death process. It covers predictive analytics, knowing when death is near, the precise mechanics of the funeral rites, building the next body, and the handling of glitch scenarios, accidents, suicides, and children. 14. Predictive analytics, signs of approaching death, Arishta Lakshanas. In the modern world, death often surprises us. However, Ayurvedic and yogic texts, Shiva Swarodaya, Lingapura, describe specific physiological and sensory signals, Arishta Lakshanas, that appear weeks or months before the subtle body detaches. Recognizing these allows the individual to start the death preparation protocol immediately. 1. The breath anomaly, Swara Vijnana. Normally, your breath alternates between the left nostril, Ida, moon or cooling, and right nostril, Pingala, sun or heating, every 90 minutes. The sign, if the breath flows continuously through the same nostril for 24 hours, death is predicted within 3 years. The critical sign, if it flows through the same nostril for 2 to 3 days continuously, death is imminent, usually within a month or year, depending on the text. The body's polarity mechanism has broken down, the battery is no longer charging. 2. The shadow distortion, Chaya Purusha. Yogis practice gazing at their own shadow. The sign, if you look at your shadow in the morning sun, neck to head, and do not see the head, or if the shadow appears torn or pierced, it indicates the subtle body is already fracturing. The energetic template is dissolving before the physical body does. 3. Sensory inversions. Auditory. The inner sound. Anahata nada, a constant low-frequency hum heard when plugging the ears, disappears. If you plug your ears and hear absolute silence, the prana is withdrawing from the auditory nerve. Visual. Inability to see the tip of one's own nose. This indicates a misalignment of the eye's focal convergence due to nerve withdrawal. Olfactory. Smelling corpse-like odors or metallic scents when none are present. Hallucinatory smells indicating changes in the olfactory bulb. 4. The luster loss, tejas. The face loses its subtle glow. Ojas. The skin may appear dull or ashy despite good hygiene. This is the withdrawal of the Brejaka Pitta, the metabolic fire in the skin. Practical action. If these signs appear, one must stop engaging in long-term worldly projects, agami karma, and switch exclusively to sadhana, clearing sanchita karma. 15. The architecture of the exit. Environmental protocols. You cannot control when you die, but you can control how. The environment at the moment of exit dramatically impacts the trajectory of the subtle body. This is launchpad physics. 1. Directional alignment. Sleeping. We usually sleep with the head to the east for knowledge, or south for deep rest. Never north, magnetic conflict. Dying, the head should be placed toward the north, while the Earth's magnetic pull is north. When the prana is loose, the magnetic pull assists in dragging the energy toward the head, crown chakra, rather than the feet. You want a head exit, high realms, not an anus exit, lower realms. 2. The grounding, bhushayana. A dying person should eventually be moved from the bed to the floor, on a mat or kusha grass. The physics. Beds insulate. The floor connects the body to the Earth's electromagnetic field. This grounding calms the chaotic electrical storms firing in the dying brain and facilitates the discharge of the earth element signals from the chakras. 3. The Tulsi and Ganga logic. Tulsi, holy basil. Placing a leaf in the mouth is not superstition. Tulsi is high in mercury and electrical potency. It acts as a rapid purifier of the throat center, Vishuddhi, often the place where choking or phlegm creates panic. Ganga water. Water carries memory. Water from a high-energy source, like Gangotri, carries the vibration of liberation. Putting it in the mouth tunes the body's water element to a higher frequency right before the system shuts down. 4. The soundscape, Karna mantra. Hearing is the last sense to go. The dying person may look comatose, but they are listening. Do not cry, discuss money, or argue. The subtle body is hypersensitive and will latch onto this distress. Do chant a continuous, rhythmic mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Rama, or the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, into the right ear. The right ear is energetically connected to the sun channel, Pingala, which activates clarity and consciousness. 16. The 13-day crisis management. Building the travel suit. Part 1 mentioned the Preta state. Part 3 explains the construction process. The funeral rites, Antyeshti, are literally a 10-day construction project to convert a ghost into an ancestor. The soul is currently a naked ball of energy, disoriented. It needs a subtle form, Yatana Deha, to travel the path to the ancestral realm. The Pinda Da'an, offering of rice balls, builds this body limb by limb. The 10-day biological construction schedule. The Garuda Purana outlines the formation of the Yatana Deha based on the offerings. Day 1, the Pinda creates the head. Day 2, creates the ears, eyes, and nose. Day 3 creates the throat, shoulders, and arms. Day 4 creates the chest and stomach. Day 5 creates the navel and genitals. Day 6 creates the hips and thighs. Day 7 creates the knees and legs. Day 8 creates the ankles and feet. Day 9 creates the joints and vital airs. Day 10, the body is complete. The entity can now eat and travel. Practical consequence. If you skip these rituals, the entity remains a head or a torso energetically. It is crippled. It cannot travel the path to Pitru Loka. It remains stuck in the ether near the house, suffering immense pain. This is what creates a haunting. The ghost is simply a disabled soul screaming for help. Day 11 and 12, the integration. Day 11, Rishadsarga, releasing a bull or feeding cattle. This generates the punya, fuel, needed for the journey. Day 12, Sapindikarana, the most critical ritual. The mechanic, 4 pots are used. 1 represents the deceased, Preta. 3 represent the father, grandfather, and great-grandfather Pitras. The water from the Preta pot is poured into the Pitru pots. The result, the soul loses its ghost status and officially joins the ancestral corp. It is now a Pitru. It can enter the ancestral dimension. 17. Forensic spirituality. Handling anomalous deaths. Not everyone dies of old age in a bed. The bad deaths, durmarana, require specific handling because the mechanics are broken. 1. Suicide, atmahatya. The problem, the silver cord, connection between subtle and gross body, was severed before the karmic lifespan was over. The prana is still vibrant, but has no container. The state, the entity is trapped in the earth's atmosphere. It is full of regret, anger, and confusion. It repeats the moment of death endlessly, a loop. The remedy, standard rituals do not work immediately because the soul is too agitated to accept them. Narayan Bali, a specific ritual invoking Lord Vishnu, the preserver, to surgically intervene and accept the soul despite the premature exit. This must be done at specific locations, like Trimbakeshwar or Gokarna. 2. Accidents or violent death, akala mrityu. The problem, shock. The soul was ejected so fast it doesn't know it is dead. It tries to talk to people, go to work, and becomes frustrated when ignored. The remedy, Bhagavata Saptaha, 7-day reading of the scripture. The vibration of the scripture educates the confused spirit, helping it realize its state and move on. 3. Miscarriage and abortion, Garbhasrav. The truth, a soul enters the womb at the moment of conception, fusion of sperm or egg. However, the locking in, stabilization, happens around the 3rd, 5th month. Early miscarriage, often a soul that had very little karma to work out, perhaps just the karma of being conceived and dying. It touches the earth plane and leaves immediately. It is usually a high-level soul or one with very minor residue. Ritual, they do not need full cremation. They are usually buried. Because they didn't develop an ego or worldly attachments, they don't need the 10-day reconstruction. They return to the source or find a new womb quickly. 18. The river of trauma, Vaitarni, and the logic of dawn. You will hear about the Vaitarni River. In the Puranas, it is described as a river of pus, blood, and mucus that the soul must cross to reach the realm of Yama. No fluff interpretation, the Vaitarni is the psychological subconscious. It represents all the filth, suppressed emotions, guilt, and nasty attachments the person hid during their life. The crossing, to cross it, you need a boat. That boat is Dani His, charity, given at the time of death. Godan, cow donation. You will see people donating a cow, or money equivalent, at death. The scripture says the soul grabs the cow's tail to cross the river. The meaning, the cow represents sattva, pure, nourishing nature. By giving away wealth to support a sattvic creature, you generate a burst of sattvic energy. This energy acts as a shield, allowing the soul to float over its own lake of guilt without drowning in it. 19. Simulation training, Yoga Nidra, little death. You ask for practical things. You can practice dying every night. Sleep is a temporary death. Waking state, Jagrat. Gross body is active. Dream state, Svapna. Subtle body is active. Gross body paralyzed. Deep sleep, Sushupti. Causal body is active. Subtle body shuts down. The practice. 1. Lie in Savasana, corpse pose, before sleep. 2. Consciously withdraw energy from the toes up to the head, simulating the death withdrawal. 3. Affirm, I am not this body. I am not this breath. I am not this mind. 4. Enter sleep while holding the awareness of I am. 5. Why? If you can maintain a sliver of awareness while your body falls asleep, Yoga Nidra, you will be able to maintain awareness when your body dies. This prevents the coma of death and allows for a conscious exit. XX. The crow and the dog. Interspecies communication. Why are crows and dogs fed during death rituals? 1. The crow kaka. Crows are believed to have a visual spectrum that overlaps with the preta, ghost, dimension. They can see the subtle bodies. The offering. When you offer rice balls to crows during Shraddha, you are using the bird as a medium. If the crow pecks the food, it is a signal that the ancestor has accepted the energy. If the crow refuses, it indicates the ancestor is unhappy or stuck due to unfulfilled desires. 2. The dog, Shvana. Dogs are associated with Bhairava, a form of Shiva, and Yama, who has two four-eyed dogs. Dogs can sense the approach of Yama's messengers, negative energy forms. Feeding dogs creates a protective barrier around the departing soul. 21. The Between Lives Review, Chitragupta's ledger. Is there a life review? Yes, it is presided over by Chitragupta. He is the cosmic accountant. The record, every thought, word, and action, is recorded in the Akashic records, the etheric cloud. The review, you are not judged by a deity. You are shown the recording. The pain in hell comes from empathy. In the disembodied state, the barriers of ego are gone. When you review the scene where you hurt someone, you don't just see it. You feel exactly what they felt. If you punch someone, you feel the punch. If you broke a heart, you feel the heartbreak. Self-judgment, you judge yourself. You crave your own purification. You want to go to Naraka to burn off this guilt so you can try again. 22. The mechanics of Jati Smara, remembering past lives. You might ask, why don't I remember my past life? If I knew, I wouldn't make mistakes. The amnesia is a safety feature. The mechanism, the trauma of birth, being squeezed through the birth canal, usually wipes the surface memory of the subtle body. Why it's necessary? If you remember that your current mother was your murderer in the last life, could you love her? If you remembered you were a king, could you scrub toilets now? The veil of Maya allows you to play the current role without the baggage of the previous script. How to unlock it, Jati Smara? It is not recommended for beginners. It occurs spontaneously in deep meditation when the samskaras, scars, bubbling up from the causal body are witnessed without reaction. Technique, Pratiprasava, reverse birthing. A yogic technique of rewinding the film of your life back to the womb and then pushing further back. This requires high stability or it leads to psychosis. 23. The Guru's override, Diksha and death. This is the get out of jail free card, but it costs your ego. If a person has a true guru, Satguru, and has received Diksha, initiation. 1. The connection. The guru connects their energy system to the disciple. 2. The death moment. The guru, even if physically dead or distant, appears energetically at the moment of death. 3. The intervention. The guru can block the path to the lower realms. They can take the disciple's heavy karma onto themselves, burning it in their own body to lighten the disciple's load. 4. The destination. The disciple does not go to generic Pitruloka. They go to the guru's energetic domain, a pocket dimension, to continue training until they are ready for liberation. Practical note, this is why finding a realized master is the highest priority in the Hindu tradition. They are the only ones who can hack the administrative system of Yama. 24. Summary of practical must-dos, no fluff checklist. If you take nothing else away, execute this checklist. 1. Resolve conflicts. Now, do not go to sleep angry. You might not wake up, and that anger will become your residue. 2. The Good Death Fund. Set aside money specifically for your funeral and 13-day rites. Do not burden your family. Ensure they know you want the full rituals performed. 3. Learn the exit mantra. Pick one name, Ram, Om, Shiva. Chant it 108 times every day. This creates a groove in the mind. When death hits and the brain fails, the mind will slide into this groove automatically. 4. Holy water and basil. Keep Ganga Jal and Tulsi in your house. Tell your family where it is. 5. Donate while alive. Don't wait for your will. Give with your own hands. The psychological release of giving is what cleans the subtle body. 6. Fast on Ekadashi, the 11th day of the lunar cycle. Fasting burns bodily toxins and subtle attachments. It lightens the vessel. Final truth. Death is only terrible for those who have never investigated it. For the wise, it is just changing clothes. You are the immortal Atman. You have died 1,000 times, and you are still here. Stop worrying about the vehicle and focus on the driver. High value next step. Would you like a breakdown of the Garuda Purana's map of the afterlife? This would be a visual or descriptive guide of the specific stations the soul stops at during the 12-month journey to the Yamaloka, which corresponds to the monthly rituals, Masika, performed by the living. It is a literal roadmap of the trek.